into turn 1 of game 2. Again, Toler Webb on the top of your screen representing America up against Raphael on the bottom half of your screen representing Canada. Toler actually chooses to bring his Amoonguss this time along with his Landorus. Raphael choosing to go with the Gardevoir and Scrafty leads. So this is pretty much telegraphed. I want to put up Trick Room.
That it is, and Amoonguss is a great Pokemon to discourage that plan. We see that Trace getting Intimidate, so Landorus is going to have a very difficult time accomplishing anything this turn, but this is a fun matchup in this first turn here. Typically you might like to just get this Trick Room up. You can fake out the Amoonguss and Trick Room and feel like you're not in too much trouble, but the question then is, well, then what do you do? One of the weaknesses of Raphael's team in this situation is that since he chose that Life Orb Heatran we saw doing all that damage in that first game, it doesn't instead of Safety Goggles, so he doesn't have a Pokemon he can just switch into a Spore other than his own Amoonguss if he chose to bring it, and that really doesn't help him take advantage of the Trick Room very much with another Amoonguss on the other side of the field.
Yeah, the Amoonguss is one of the most common techs we see against Trick Room for precisely that reason. Raphael decides to make a change on the fly, does not want to set up Trick Room, switches out his Gardevoir in favor of Thundurus instead. Amoonguss will protect Landorus. U-turning out, just wants to scout out and deal a little bit of damage. Actually deals quite a bit of damage to that Thundurus. A critical hit with that U-turn. Toler switching back. That Landorus will be able to now see both of the Pokemon that Raphael wants out on the field. Knows that Scrafty still is yet to move. Switches his Landorus out in favor of Gardevoir. Now Gardevoir on the field for Toler. Scrafty using knockoff onto the Gardevoir. It's going to be able to deal some damage to Gardevoir, but unfortunately that Mega Gardevoir likes to hold on to its stone.
Yeah, it's one of the quirks of Mega Stones that you can't knock them off, so that U-turn being very smart. Gardevoir also great against both of these Pokemon, and Amoonguss in favorable position now too. That protects to avoid anything happening to it, such as losing its item last turn, which is important because its item, unlike Raphael's Amoonguss, which has Rocky Helmet, is Mental Herb, which is going to be a big problem if Thundurus goes for the taunt here, which is sort of the obvious play.
Well, we'll have to see if Raphael went with the obvious play. Instead, he switched out Scrafty in favor of Heatran. Heatran pairing up pretty nicely against both this Gardevoir and the Amoonguss. And with no rain on the field just yet, that might be what Raphael needs to get back in the game here. Toler's Gardevoir will go ahead and immediately Mega Evolve Swagger from Thundurus onto that Amoonguss. But as you mentioned, the attack will rise sharply, will become confused. The Mental Herb on there not going to be able to protect against from the confusion. So damage onto both the Thundurus and the Heatran. Thundurus healing up a little bit more with Citrus. Amoonguss now rolling the dice, seeing if it will be able to get off an attack this turn. Confused, gets the Spore off. Who will it target? Targets down to Thundurus. So Thundurus now sleeping. Amoonguss still confused. Heatran now out on the field though.
Yeah, a very interesting situation here, too. Actually, really the only bit of information about these teams that wasn't revealed was the type of Gardevoir's hidden power. Most people would probably expect it to be ground type. I've been told it's not. I think Raphael has figured this out. I've heard Toler thought he had the information at the very least, but if not, Heatran might have to play a little bit scared here.
Well, Toler is definitely going to play more conservatively. Had that Politoed in the back, the perfect switch in for this Heatran. Now going to also protect that Amoonguss with the Drizzle. So Heatran's fire-type attack's not going to be able to deal as much damage as Raphael might want. Heatran instead just going to protect, wants to burn some turns here while Thundurus is sleeping, trying to get it to wake up so that it can start interacting with this battle again. Confused Amoonguss. Going to hit itself in its own confusion, but most likely not going to be able to get much anything done that turn anyway.
Yeah, I think it's very likely it's Spore to do a protect. So, sometimes even when you hit yourself in confusion, not the worst thing in the world, just losing a little bit of health for it. Politoed coming back in is a big deal here. We saw how well it was able to deal with that Thundurus last game, in spite of it being an electric-type Pokemon, thanks to its item, and getting that rain on the field, and the threat of Scald is really going to help with Heatran as well.
Speaking of things that can help with that Thunderbolt, Amoonguss trying to go for maybe a Rage Powder there, but hits itself in its own confusion, but Thundurus is still sleeping. Raphael not going to be able to get off any damage this turn from the Thundurus. Heat Wave comes out from the Heatran, dealing a lot of damage to the Amoonguss again, and a little bit of damage to the Politoed. That Heatran, it doesn't care about the rain because it could just get critical hits all day, every day. Ice Beam from Politoed onto Thundurus. Will it be able to survive? No, Thundurus will go down to that Ice Beam from the Politoed. So now Politoed and that Amoonguss out on the field against Heatran, and Raphael needs to make a switch in here. It will be the Gardevoir going to be able to put out a lot of pressure against that Politoed offensively, and also that Amoonguss is now a little bit low, that it probably wants to get off the field.
And that it does. Usually the regenerator ability allows it to heal up. So even though Amoonguss is low at health, it can definitely come back later and take a hit. The cost of that's going to be pretty high, however. Mega Gardevoir getting in for free on a knockout there, able to threaten Mega Evolution and Hyper Voice now to do pretty big chunks of damage. However, doing that leaves Heatran exposed, so unless Raphael thinks that Hyper Voice and one of Heatran's attacks, thanks to that Life Orb, will be able to knock out Politoed, he's got to be very careful here. Certainly doesn't want to give up Heatran for free and end up in a situation where this is even, 3-2 at this point. Already down 1-0 in the series. Falling behind too quickly here could take away his chance at stealing that United States National Championship and bringing it back up to Canada.
Yeah, it's going to be rough for Raphael. Gardevoir, Heatran. You can see that Raphael is taking every moment he has. Amoonguss will switch out, going to heal himself up a little bit with that regenerator ability. Lander is now out on the field. It's a strong Pokemon against both the Gardevoir and the Heatran, but not so much if it's under a Trick Room. Heatran's attack and Gardevoir is both going to drop because of the Intimidate. Mega Gardevoir showing up for Raphael now. So Mega Gardevoir on the field, going to try and deal as much damage as possible potentially here. Politoed protecting. So just trying to get that Landorus in for free here. No damage coming out. Heatran's Flash Cannon into Politoed's Protect. Hyper Voice from Gardevoir. Not going to deal damage to Politoed, but will deal damage to that Landorus. So a good amount of damage to Landorus, but now that Landorus is out on the field and there's no Trick Room, it can basically, run over this game.
Yeah, or can it? One thing about this Landorus, both of these Landorus, actually, both of them, we normally see that Choice Scarf Landorus. Neither of these are. They're both actually jolly-natured, choice-band Landorus. One of the problems with that, of course, not as quick as the normal Landorus, depending on how Toler's Gardevoir is trained and how Raphael's as well. They can't necessarily be sure that their Landorus will go before the Gardevoir here.
Well, we'll have to see which Pokemon goes first. Heatran will protect, does not want to take any damage. Landorus' U-turn goes first. U-turn onto Gardevoir. That is Choice Band Landorus, but not going to be able to deal enough to that Gardevoir. So Gardevoir still on the field. Politoed needs to deal damage to that Gardevoir, or else it will be suffering another Hyper Voice or potentially letting that Trick Room come up. In case Trick Room comes up, Toler switches in Amoonguss. Hyper Voice from the Gardevoir onto Politoed and Amoonguss. Not very effective, but deals good damage to Politoed. Scald from the Politoed onto Gardevoir. Doesn't pick up the KO. 14 health. Gardevoir is still around on the field here. And now Heatran and Gardevoir up against Amoonguss and Politoed. You have to feel a lot better about this position than the last turn.
Yeah, that you definitely do, but that Scald not quite able to pick up the burn and the knockout on Gardevoir. The damage from Landorus is really nice, though. We see the Choice Band putting out significantly more damage than for the traditional Landorus we see. And later in the game, we'll be able to come in and Earthquake. There's still that issue for Rafa. He's got to keep playing this game in a way that gives him a chance to win. Gardevoir is very weakened. Heatran is Heatran. And Scrafty, the only remaining Pokemon that Intimidate is going to be very important. He's going to have to try to find ways to get it in and out safely here, I think. It's important not to just allow it to hang out in the back and then get brought in where it can only fake out once, loses access to switching and recycling that in the Intimidate.
Well, it looks like Toler is going to protect his Amoonguss, thinks that mushroom is going to be crucial to the win here. Amoonguss avoids the Flash Cannon with that Protect. Hyper Voice from Gardevoir will be able to KO that Politoed. A critical hit as well. A lot of crits in these games so far, but Amoonguss still around. Rain does stop, so now Heatran does not have to worry about the rain, but again, no Trick Room up. Gardevoir is the choice for Toler.
That it is, and I guess that's one of the problems with Landorus here. He'd like to bring it in and just click Earthquake, but doing so would cause Toler to knock out his own Amoonguss, or I guess he could switch in Gardevoir and start knocking that out instead. Either way, not a very good situation. So Landorus gonna have to save its talents for later, and Amoonguss is gonna try to protect this Gardevoir as it gets some damage out.
Well, it's going to try and protect the Gardevoir with that Rage Powder. Heatran's Flash Cannon again will be redirected onto Amoonguss, deals damage, gets the KO onto Amoonguss. So Amoonguss now down for Toler. If Raphael could get up a Trick Room here, it would be huge, but instead goes for the Psyshock onto Gardevoir. Knows that Mega Gardevoir on Raphael's side just needs to get damage before it goes down to this Hyper Voice. So Gardevoir failing to that Hyper Voice. Heatran taking a little bit of damage, but again, now we're in a position where we have that Choice Band Landorus out on the field, and I believe that was Scrafty in the back for Raphael.
It can only fake out one Pokemon here. Hyper Voice from Gardevoir can knock out Scrafty. Superpower or Earthquake from Landorus can knock out Heatran. It's all going to come down to the speeds here. The Choice Scarf Landorus would probably make this situation a little bit easier, but without that, anything could definitely happen here. Also still using a choice item, not able to protect, so it's a pretty safe fake out if if Raphael wants to go for it, rather. And it's really up to him to make this play. Toler only really has the option of whether or not to protect Gardevoir or go for that Hyper Voice, but there's two Pokemon you could potentially fake out here, depending on what you're afraid of. Landorus seems like the more likely choice.
Yep, Raphael goes with that more likely choice, a critical hit. This game is in critical condition for Raphael. He needs it. Heat Wave from Heatran goes first. We'll pick up the KO on that Landorus. Gardevoir stays on just a little bit, but gets burnt as it takes that damage, and its partner Landorus falls on the field. Heatran taking that Life Orb damage. Hyper Voice coming out from the Gardevoir will deal a lot of damage. A one-hit KO onto Scrafty, but Heatran is still around, and that Gardevoir burnt now. Raphael, he's bringing it back to Canada here. A game 3 for us in Indianapolis.
And that's what we want, right? A impressively played game from Raphael.